Hey everybody, been a while since I've done a DBD tier list video, and there are reasons for that. It's because the last time I did a Dead by Daylight tier list video, in fact I did an entire week of them, I got called slurs for my opinions on a video game. But screw it, I need content for this week, and it's been a bit of a slow news week in terms of the gaming space, and I've got a couple of big scripts that I haven't yet finished, so I thought I would do a few days of a special type of tier list. I did this once before whenever I used to be an Apex Legends streamer, but I figured it would be cool to do it again. This is what I like to call the what do they need tier list. Instead of judging them by like power level and how strong, how strong or weak they are, instead I wanted to kind of go a little bit of a different route. This is so we're going to be judging the characters based off of whether or not they need hard buffs. This is like you go through and you look at like multiple stuff and you change like a whole bunch of numbers in their kit and like just do a full on like make them stronger. Then there's just normal buffs. This is like 1 to 5 number changes. I'd say honestly like 1 to 3 number changes. Like they don't need a lot. They don't need a big massive change. We've got just fine, which means that I think they're okay. They don't need to be touched. They don't need to be messed with. Leave them alone. We've got nerf, which is exactly like it sounds, 1 to 3 number changes or a small thing that like kind of like makes them a little bit weaker. We've got hard nerf, which means that I think that they are way too strong and definitely need to be taken down like a whole bunch of pegs. And then we have full rework, which means they don't need buffs, they don't need nerfs, they need to have their kit completely changed and shift the way that they work. So, starting off with Trapper, we need a full rework for Trapper. I maintain that Trapper is the weakest character in the entire game. He needs like 5 different of his add-ons base kit. He needs to start with all of his traps. His traps need to work on a recycle. If you don't know what that means that once you've placed all the traps, when you go to place another one, the first trap you put down gets like taken away. It gets, deleted, and so you can put down another trap. He needs his traps to like actually be harder to spot or harder to disarm, either one. Trapper just needs, he doesn't just need hard buffs. Like you would think hard buffs, but he needs more than number changes or 1 or 2 little tweaks. He needs like a full on go back to the drawing board and make this character not miserable to play. Next up we have Wraith. I think Wraith is just fine. He doesn't need buffs, he doesn't need nerfs. I said in the past that I think like you could do some cool stuff with him, like maybe allow him to pick up survivors while he's cloaked, which I think would be kind of funny, but realistically the more that I think about it, the more that I realize that I really don't care about his power level. I just think that the character is okay. You should leave him alone. I don't really think he needs any changes, but being able to pick up survivors while cloaked would be absolutely hilarious. Next up is the Hillbilly. Honestly, in terms of like this stuff, right, the buffs, nerfs, and everything, I think Hillbilly is fine. I just think that he needs his, I would say, no, it's not even a buff though. I guess it kind of is. So in the last like sledgehammer they took to Billy, his boot add-ons, they increased the rarity of the 2 boot add-ons and then simultaneously nerfed the numbers. So they basically double nerfed boots, which is stupid. And I think that the numbers need to be reverted. I'm fine with the rarity. I think the rarity was a perfectly valid thing to do. I just think that the numbers need to be reverted. I just think that the numbers need to be reverted and you can keep the rarity. And I also want, him to not bounce off of leaves that are 6 feet above his head. And I want survivors who are clearly hit with the chainsaw to be hit with the chainsaw instead of being able to go, thank you, Mr. Chainsaw, and then walking away. Like, I'm tired of it. Next up is the Nurse. I don't think she needs a full rework. I think she needs a slight nerf that if you manage to blind her or stun her, I would say stun her. I don't say blind and stun, but if you manage to stun her, it resets her tokens and puts her into fatigue. So if you get pallet stunned, if they wiggle out, if you get decisive striked, if you get a flashlight save happens, basically I want to make it to where you can't just say, oh, that was a cute little stun, and then immediately be back on top of the survivor. I think that the survivor needs a little bit more of a chance when she gets stunned. So I would say a slight nerf to Nurse would make her a little bit more bearable, because honestly, if I don't say that, I would say a full rework and completely change the way her power works, because she is the most oppressive killer in the game. Next up is Myers. Myers needs a full rework to like everything about his power. We do know now that he's getting some killer tweaks next month, which I can't wait to see. I hope it's not bad, but you know, I think that he needs more than just change Tombstone a little bit. I think that his whole base power needs to be completely overhauled. There needs to no longer be a stalk limit. The distance on stalking needs to, the fall off for stalking needs to go away. His tier 3 should be buffed. I talked about all this in the Myers video. I did a full breakdown of Myers and what I would do to him. So yeah, definitely. Next up is Hag. I think Hag is just fine where she is. I don't think Hag really needs any major buffs or nerfs or rework or anything like that. I think Hag is definitely exactly where she needs to be. You know, she's fine. She's fine. She's in the middle. She's right where she needs. I'm okay. Next up is Doctor. Doctor's the exact same as Hag. I think he's in a perfectly viable spot. He doesn't need anything, really. He doesn't need to be touched. He doesn't need to be fucked with. He doesn't need any of that. Doctor can stay exactly where he's at, and I do think that that would just be, you know, don't touch him. Don't touch him behavior. Next up is Huntress. I want to give Huntress a slight nerf and revert her hatchets back down to 5. I don't even give a fuck about the belts. Don't even give the belts back. Just keep it at 5. 7 hatchets is way too goddamn much. I would rather you bring her hatchets down to 5 and then normalize locker spawns so we fix the reloading problem, and she would just be perfect. She would honestly be the perfect killer to play against. That's just my opinion though. Next up is Bubba. I think Bubba's fine, honestly. I think he's okay. I think I still maintain that he's basically an M1 killer because he has to play like an M1 killer. He has to get directly on your asshole before he starts revving his chainsaw. Otherwise, it's too easy to loop him. But like, there's not really much you can do. You don't want to buff him too much because then you end up in a kind of really bad positioning where he becomes too oppressive with his insta down. So you don't want to do something like buff his rev speed or buff his movement speed while revving or anything like that. I think he's okay where he's at. He's a little bit frustrating to play sometimes, but I do think he's in a good spot. Next up is Freddy. Needs a full rework. And honestly, like, if I was ordering these in like the order that like I think they need the most, I think Freddy needs a rework the most out of every character in the game. Like out of every single killer in the game, Freddy needs the hardest rework out of all of them because he desperately needs to feel like Freddy Krueger. I've talked about this in my Analysts of Freddy video, but he needs to feel like Freddy Krueger, and he just doesn't right now, and that's just really rough. He feels like Sharpan Joe Darn, right? He doesn't feel like Freddy. And just as a quick aside, I'll link it in the description, but I have an entire playlist called Analysis of a Killer where I have talked about all the killers that are currently in the list in full, and I'm working on the pig video. I've got some trouble with it right now, but yeah, I'll let you guys know when the pig video's all. Anyway, speaking of Pig, I think Pig needs hard buffs. I think Pig genuinely needs something to bring her out. I don't think her kit needs to be reworked. I just think that like she needs something to guarantee the downs more often. Her ambush is a little... Her ambush just isn't good enough. You know what I think would be a great buff? And it wouldn't be, honestly, it would just be a slight buff. I would say slight buff. Not hard buff, slight buff. If her ambush could break pallets. Like the same way Blight or Demogorgon or something. I feel like, honestly, and this might be a hot take. Don't get me wrong, this might be a hot take. But I think that every single killer power that directly attacks with the killer power counts as an M2 should break pallets. You know, Pig ambush. I wouldn't say all of them. That's not fair. Every physical M2 should break pallets, right? So, like I said, Pig ambush should break pallets. Am I wrong in the fact? Wait, is she the only one where her M2 is like a physical and it doesn't break pallets? Yeah, because Chucky's scampers under. The Xenomorph tail doesn't break pallets. So yeah, I guess Xenomorph tail and Pig ambush I think should break pallets. Xenomorph probably not, actually, the more I think about it, because it's already an anti-loot power. So yeah, Yeah, Pig Ambush should break pallets. Just like I said, just like Blight, just like Demo, just like all of that stuff. Next up is Clown. Clown is another one with a slight nerf. Reduce his bottles down. I think that his bottles should be separate. So right now he can carry 6. I think he should have 3 and 3, like 3 purple, 3 yellow. So it encourages using both bottles a little bit more, and also teaches the newer Clown players how to utilize both bottles. So it'd be a nerf in that aspect, but it would also be kind of a buff because it would allow you to, like, you know, manage a little bit better. Maybe it would, you know, it'd heighten his skill floor a bit. So yeah, I think that should be it. Next up is Spirit. Hard nerf the bitch, no. Slight nerf. There needs to be some sort of visual cue to show which direction she's phasing from for hard of hearing players. This is getting ridiculous. I'm so sick of so much in this game relying on sound. She needs it, right? And it doesn't need to be anything specific. We don't need like an arrow or something pointing at her, but like just if you can hear out of both ears. If you can hear out of both ears and you have headphones in and you have the sound up, you can hear which side she's phasing from. It gets louder on whichever side she's on. So we need something. Hard of hearing players need something. Next up is Legion. Legion needs hard buffs. As annoying as Legion is to play against, he is quite possibly, or they are quite possibly, one of the weakest killers in the game. They need hard buffs. They need strong buffs. They need buffs to their frenzy speed. They need buffs to their vaulting speed when they're in frenzy. They need buffs to their they need buffs to the increased speed after they hit somebody. Like Legion needs like hard number buffs to get them up to speed, because right now they are struggling. The only way to get a 5-man frenzy is to have survivors who are idiots. If survivors aren't stupid, I have a member of the community, Delilah, who submits a 5-man frenzy or 5-man frenzy compilation, whichever one, every week to my Rate My Gaming series, and every single week you can pinpoint exactly how the survivors are just fucking idiots, and that's what leads to the 5-man frenzy. Granted, you know, Delilah is a skilled Legion player, and she uses the double brown add-ons in order to help with the 5-man frenzy, but there's so many times where we watch the clip and it's just so avoidable. It's just so avoidable. So I don't think a power working on the stupidity of the survivors is a good power, at least in my opinion. Next up, we've got Plague. I think Plague is just fine. There's nothing really wrong. No, I can't think of a single thing that I would change on Plague. I think she's okay. I think there's like some bugs right now that are going on with her, but outside of that, I think she's fine. Don't really need to do anything. Ghostface is another one that needs some, I wouldn't say hard buffs. I just think the reveal mechanic I would say rework. I think the reveal mechanic, like as a whole, just needs to be reworked. I think it needs to be taken out of the game and replaced with some other kind of weakness. I thought about doing like a hypothetical rework for him, not necessarily, hey, this is my suggestion, this is what I think they should do, but more of like a dream rework that I would like to see. I just think the reveal mechanic is too buggy, it's too unreliable for survivors, it's too consistent when you're playing the killer, and I know that sounds weird to say both of those in the same time, but like anybody who's played Ghostface and played against Ghostface can tell you that when you're playing Survivor, you could stare at him for hours and he won't get revealed. But when you're playing Ghostface, you get revealed from behind 4 rocks in the next trial over. It is ridiculous how inconsistent that fucking mechanic is, and definitely needs to be completely reworked and moved somewhere else. Next up is the Demogorgon, probably the most balanced killer in the entire game. Actually, I'm going to put him in the buff category, just because I think, I said this in my coverage of the roadmap, but I think they just need to make his portals go on a refresh, which is what I said for Trapper earlier. Basically, you place all your portals down, and then you want to place another portal down, you go to do it, but the first portal that you place disappears. Is just a slight buff. Next up is Oni. I think Oni's fine. I think Oni's perfectly fine. Oni is one of those characters where I feel like Oni's one of those characters where I feel like a lot of people don't really like think about that much, because there's really nothing wrong with him. He works fine, he functions fine, his power has counterplay, his stuff has, He's just good. Honestly, he's all around probably one of the most balanced killers in the entire game. Next up is Deathslinger. I think Deathslinger needs some slight buffs. The eerie, the branding iron needs to be completely fucking reworked. The branding iron add-on needs to be completely fucking reworked. It's useless. It's honestly one of the most useless add-ons in the entire game, and it's an iridescent. I think that the branding iron should be that when the chain crosses over a pallet, the pallet breaks, and maybe don't injure the survivor, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I think that's how it should work. Oh no, you know what would be a great way to balance it? When the chain goes over a pallet, the pallet breaks, and you're stunned for, say, what, 3 seconds, 1.5 to 3 seconds, but your reload time is increased by like 30% or 20% or something for like 10 seconds. So like you can't like reel them in, get the injure, break the pallet, and then immediately reload and shoot them again. I think that would be kind of a cool counterbalance measure. Next up is Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head needs hard buffs in the way, no, sorry. I would say full rework in the way of his add-ons. Pyramid's Head needs the biggest add-on overhaul out of any killer in this game. The single biggest group of useless add-ons ever added to a video game. Ever. Ever. Next up is Blight. I think Blight's fine. Blight's in a perfectly good place. Don't really need to touch him. Please stop touching him. I feel like they just don't know what to do with Blight. Leave him alone. He's okay. Twins is okay. Don't really think anything needs to change with them. The buffs and quality of life features that they got recently were fine. I didn't really agree with the nerf, but some Twins mains told me that they did, so I'm just going to go with them. Next up is Trickster. Trickster needs a full rework, reverted back to where he's going. Apparently they are working on that, which is good. The Trickster community has been very outspoken about the lack of identity from the character, so I think fully reworking the character back to what he once was is the definite way to go. Next up is the Nemesis. Nemesis is perfectly fine where he's at. I don't think that there's any problems with him. I certainly don't have any problems with him. I don't think you guys have any problems with him, so we're just going to go with that. Next up is Pinhead. Pinhead is also fine. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Artist is also fine. I'm going to ask you a question, right? See if you can answer it. How the fuck does this character work? We're on like the 4th iteration of this character. Do you understand how bad that is? You understand how fucking horrible that is? I don't know how this character works. I don't know what they need. I'm just gonna put her in the fine category because I literally have no idea how she works anymore. Like it's changed so much, and every time I try to figure it out, every time I think I got it, it changes again. So hey, you know what, Sadako mains? Tell me down below where you think she belongs. Next up is the Dredge. Dredge is fine. Honestly, I would say the Dredge needs a buff, but in terms of like locker spawns need to be normalized. That's my only big thing. I'm not going to put Dredge in the buffed category because several characters like Trickster and Huntress would also benefit from normalized locker spawns, so yeah. Next up is Whiskers. Whiskers is fine. Knight is fine. Skull Merchant needs hard buffs. Holy shit, they massacred the poor girl, man. Like, Jesus Christ. They brought Skull Merchant out to the guillotine and then hung her before putting her in the guillotine. Like, that was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous change. I cannot believe, I mean, they pulled back some of the stuff, but it's still so bad. Like, I played with her after the live changes happened, and oh my God, she feels so awful. It's just terrible. Singularity's fine. Xenomorph needs a slight buff in the control station spawns. They need to make sure the control stations always spawn within like say 5 meters of a generator, and they have to spawn on the same level, so you don't get control stations spawning, you know, down on a bottom floor when the generator's up top. So yeah, definitely just a slight little buff in that. Chucky, I think Chucky's fine. Yeah, maybe a nerf. I'd say a nerf to the cooldown on his slice and dice, or his hidey ho mode, I mean. Like 18 seconds instead of 12 that it currently is. Nah, I'd say 14 seconds, maybe. Something like that. Unknown is fine. Vecna is fine. And Dracula is fine, except I think you should, let's say buff. You should be able to see bats. I wouldn't even call it a buff, though. I wouldn't even say it's a buff. You should be able to see survivors in bat form. So yeah, so this is my full list on whether or not killers need nerfs, buffs, or reworks. Thankfully, I don't think any killer really needs to be hard nerfed. I don't think any of them are so powerful that they're just impossible to deal with and that they just need like massive, like drill them into the ground. While Nurse is like stupid oppressive and, you know, characters like Blight, Spirit, Billy are all incredibly strong, and there are some characters that are really, really strong. I don't think any of them just need like massive nerfs into the ground, which is a good sign. The fact that over half the cast is in the just fine category, I think is a great sign. I think the design of the killers is not in a bad spot right now, but we definitely have some stuff that needs to be looked at. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below. And as always, a great big special thank you to my channel members listed on screen now. If you want to find out how to become a channel member today, get awesome perks like seeing videos early, merch discount codes, and more, then please click that join button down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Need more Kaiser in your life? Well, I've got you covered. Check out my second channel, The Kaiser Extras, where I upload full gameplays, stream compilations, me reacting to your Dead by Daylight clips, and more. We also upload a daily short with all the greatest clips from stream. We'll see you over there. Link is in the description.